Hi, from our ID community of practice, just wanted to go over a quick PowerPoint or quick presentation I did on contract grading, another branch of assessment. So this is what I prepped for our meeting. So anyways, contract grading, my experience with it started off when I was in the K-12 system. Had a lot of students who were very disengaged with work. They would basically say, what do I need to do to pass? I'll do that amount and nothing more. So didn't want to fail, but didn't want to do extra work. Now the thing with the course that I started off with is it really didn't matter. So what if they got a 50, they got into the next subject. And in reality, some courses are like that where students just need to get through to get whatever piece of paper and they aren't worried about the grades. The thing I used to run into is, as an instructor, what do you do when students get a 46 and it's not because they didn't know the material, it's just because they didn't do one little extra piece of work. And so that was my first experience with contract grading. My solution was to basically not fight what the students were trying to do, but sort of work with it and try to get out what I could. So I said I'm going to make basically 3 grade ranges where you would just get a pass if you did well enough, where you'd get the average mark, and then you'd get a really good mark. So how did I do it? You basically pick the average amount of work. So if I say, okay, and instructors do this all the time, you basically judge your tests and assignments based upon what you think the average student should get, and you always are sort of norming your grades, at least in most cases. So what I sort of do is you pick that middle grade and you say, what would I think is acceptable for an average mark in this class? And then you determine all the amount of work that you want to do for that. What assignments are needed, how many of them are there, how long should they be, you get your criteria for a pass-fail. So now what you have is in the work that they're submitting, you can either say, I'm just going to grade it, it makes the cut, it doesn't make the cut, and you need to redo it and resubmit it. Or, and this is usually what I started to do, was I'd just basically say it was below average, average, or above average. You can also go through and still grade your assignments just as you normally would with standard grades, so students get that percentage complete. Now here's where you actually go through in this particular version of contract grading. Is what I would do is what they agree to in the contract determines the grade range, and then what I would do is the specific quality of how well they did on those assignments based upon these two right here determine sort of that range. Hand it in on time, look nice, and you'd sort of play it by ear when everything would come in by the end of the year, and you'd get a grade. Now, precision isn't great in this, but not all courses are able to do precise grades, and I think that's one of the misnomers in assessment, is that every grade can be determined with great precision. In some cases, it's a ballpark, and whether we realize it or not, it's just biases. So you can do this a little bit more with your grade ranges, tightening them up, making more, doing contracts. I found sort of 3 or 4 is all I want to do. I don't want to do too much. Now, where have I used this? PE courses. So let me pop up an assignment. So here's a PE course. So this one has basically 2. They've changed it. It used to be 3. Get a 60 or an 80 or an 80 or 100. Here's what you do. And what changes is basically the amount of work you have to do and how comprehensive the assignments are. We still had a minimum number of assignments that had to be completed. The extra ones would just basically be, say, do some extra credit work, provide that extra depth of thought, and that's where you can really do assignments that are interesting to grab that sort of essential knowledge. How do you piece it all together in something that's reflective, or another piece like that not all students want to do initially? So that's a little bit of contract grading. I've also used this in Science 24 classes with low attendance and engagement, and it actually worked really, really good. I found the students picked the grade, didn't have any trouble fighting with them, they knew what they were going to do, and you'd have the occasional students that I can actually get this, and they knew they could commit to a grade that they would never get otherwise because they'd forget to hand stuff in or whatnot. And there were a couple students who really came alive and got a good mark from it. What I found is most students picked what they got and would normally get in a class, worked from there, but it saved me as an instructor tons of headaches fighting with the students. It was the funnest class I had taught, actually. Where else would I use this? For classes where almost everyone will pass with close to the same mark, in which case all the specifics of grading, they're going to be getting close to the same mark. Why not let them choose a little separation based upon what they're doing. Courses where precise grading doesn't make sense. And there are some courses like that, depending what level of specificity you need for those courses. I could see things like filming classes, per se, where things are creative, and we can judge things on what they should do, shouldn't do, but it's pretty much an arbitrary decision. And so really what the grading is on how many assignments did they do of what class and what type. And so this really lets you sort of separate students by, are they going that extra distance and doing this extra assignment that demonstrates something, creative transitions, and especially courses where you need good creativity and risk-taking, where you want to encourage that to see where they really are at. I wouldn't use this in a mastery course at all where essential knowledge is needed. What I found out, I think a lot of people have probably had experience with contract grading in their master's courses. I personally liked it. I found most people sort of tended to the grade they normally got. I love the option of, if you need that A or A plus, of saying, hey, let's do this. And you also have the option of saying an A plus will only occur if you get above average on every single assignment. Teacher experience with contract grading, it's wonderful. Really frees you up to look at things with a different eye instead of focusing in on specific, I'd say, syntax and other things, to focus in on what was the core essential learning that they were getting out. And that's usually what you go to at the first step. If you have time, you go to that next level of detail, which is maybe it's the equivalent of grammar or something like that, where you need to show them. But it really frees you up on that, and it takes away that a little bit of the judgmental aspects that students interpret the assignments from. But they usually, in my experience, they still want grades, want to know how well they're doing in it. Where would I use this? At Lethbridge College? Like I said, filming courses would be great. You could use it in some PE classes, maybe even some trades classes, where it's sort of how many engine components did you build, what did you redo, where there's not, you get it, if it's done, sort of in that area. Extensions, here's another thing that I think fits in with the contract grading, and this is an exemplar continuum, a little bit different. What the exemplar continuum is if you need to focus in on skills, instead of saying here is 100%, it's basically think of it as an extension of a rubric where you have examples of student work. Here is an example of, say, this piece of writing, and so what students can do. This is K-12 example where I made it or organized it. Is students would say, I really like this, and you may not have a great idea how come. Maybe they like the way the printing was, or maybe they like the way the slide transitions were in a media thing, or maybe they like the length. And it allows students to really pick something they like and they want to work towards. So this is great for cases where the instructor may not know what every student is really wanting to get out of the course, and there may be unobvious things that they're looking for. So this leads into sort of a radical type of assessment where it works really well when students pick the example and then also say, and I want to do this because this component is what I want to start developing. And so it gets those teachers and instructors looking at what students want them to be coached on to accomplish. And the rubrics are great because then they can see all these other pieces and you can say, oh, don't forget to balance it with this, but it gives them a target that they can see. So really what it is just another example of a rubric that's done, I'd say, to the next level. And so you can keep seeing, I'd like to work up to this sample. What it also allows you to do is to say, here's a piece of your work. Can you look on this continuum and see where your work lies? How come? What about in terms of grammar? What about in terms of spelling? And you can take a look at other dimensions. And so it doesn't just allow you to give a one-dimensional look at evaluation. You're opening yourselves up to multiple dimensions and conversations there. And I think that about covers it for what I was going to do with contract grading.